Aki listeners, Let's Learn Sumo. Welcome to the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Visit me at Insta, Twitter or Facebook at Let's Learn Sumo and leave me a comment. Well, here we are at the end of the September Aki Basho, the Grand Sumo Tournament in Tokyo, and there is much to discuss and learn from this one. Sorry it's been a little bit late. Life has gotten in the way in the last week and made this a little bit later than I would have liked. But let's get into it here. So the result, as you might already know, Ozeki Takakeisho won the tournament in a playoff bout against Megashira 15 Atami Fuji. He came up last year for a very short time, went back down, but he came up with a force similar to Hako Oho in July. Well, wasn't it a bit of a thing to see the finish? The winning technique might officially be called a takikomi slapdown, but we all know it as a low-down, dirty, stinky henka. What is a henka, and you might ask? Why did I describe it as a low-down, dirty technique? You only need to check out social media to see the arguments for and against the henka. What is it? At the touchy eye, where the both opponents size up each other, they head towards each other at great force, and one opponent dodges to the side in order to move out of the way of his opponent and help him faceplant the dirt so he can't stop his momentum in time. It's a fairly divisive technique, similar to the man-cad run-out in cricket, tricky as someone inadvertently steps off base in baseball, maybe a big dive in soccer, football. Okay, not a dive, we all know that's not in the rules. Anyway, it left a sour taste in the mouth of many watching, both in Japan and internationally, but in the end, Takakeisho lifted the Emperor's Cup. So the next episode, I'll go fully into the henka. We won't dodge it or slap it down. We'll look at it and why just some people don't like it. But we won't fully explore it here. Let's use this episode to go through the tournament and see what happened in September. Excuse me while I move my notes about. Let's move on and see how everyone performed at this tournament and how we ended up with our senior Ozeki lifting the Emperor's Cup on day 15. Now, my preview episode before the tournament started, I predicted Hishoryu Shin Ozeki, Ozeki Kirishima, who was Kataban this tournament, and Asanayama, former Ozeki, who was coming back up the ranks after some suspensions, so we say, would be strong contenders for this basho. Well, gee, didn't I get that one wrong? I did say that Takakeisho and his form relied entirely on whether his knees were up to it at the time and whether, they would prove decisive about whether he was up to it for the full 15 days. Well, he surely was. Our winner, Takakeisho, came to this tournament off a number of months of knee problems. I think the last time I saw him at full power was probably back in January this year. Little, if any, preparation for this tournament in September. A big cloud over his ability to escape Kataban status once again. I think this one was about the 8th time, and his Kataban stretched back a number of years. He's managed to escape them time and time again. So day one, he fought Hokuto Fuji, who was in the playoff bout for the Emperor's Cup in July. Hokuto Fuji had a big promotion up to Megashira 1, and he lost by a head takikomi slap down in a redo after judges called a mono-e after the first go. Both times, Hokuto Fuji managed to get Takakeisho going forward onto his face. And that left Hokuto Fuji with the win after day one on our Ozeki Takakeisho. You might have noticed there were no cushions flying around. Where you might see a Zubineri might happen after such a match, apparently they have tied the cushions down in the Kokugikan Stadium in Tokyo. Poor form, I call. What's a good win without a cushion throw when someone takes out an Ozeki or a Yokozuna? Anyway, what's the Ozekis? They made hard going of it early. It was clear that the early part of the tournament that Takakeisho had returned to, if not full power, enough power to dominate his opponents. Meisei, Tamawashi, Nishikigi, they all fell to better power from Takakeisho. Day 4 match against Asanayama demonstrated that the Ozeki was well and truly back in control. He was forcing Asanayama back. Just let him overcommit for a moment, and another Hitakikomi slapdown. Bit of a blip on day 7 and 8, where Takakeisho racked up losses to Shodai and Tobizaru. Both got an Oshidashi win against Takakeisho. Shodai took it to the Ozeki despite the Slap King giving him a couple of good whacks a few times on his face. Takakeisho just got forced into a rear step out under pressure. What was interesting was probably how Takakeisho started the Tachi with both hands on the ground, unlike a lot of other matches where he uses a bit of a brushing technique to begin the Tachi. Made a difference in the playoff on day 15, certainly. You might notice Takakeisho, he's got pretty small arms. They're a lot shorter than some of the others, and because he's quite a large man, he struggles to get his hands down on the ground. Now, I know a lot of people really commented about Takakeisho's ability to touch the ground at the Tachi. It's not really a thing where the judges need to see both hands down. What the judge is looking for is both wrestlers to be ready and to synchronise their breathing effectively. So the touching the ground, whilst it is a preferable thing, I don't think Takakeisho can really achieve it these days given his size and his short arms. And it very much puts him forward and off balance. Anyway, Tobizaru, he made an excellent go of it, taking out our Ozeki and match of the day on day 8. It was one of Tobizaru's finer moments in a fairly lacklustre affair for him in September after going Makikoshi. Tobizaru, he took a pretty sustained attack from the Ozeki in his stride. He had a pretty clear intention to keep moving, keep his balance, and when he got a decent hit on the Ozeki, he took advantage of it for a push-out Oshidashi. We talked about the Kuchins not flying. It left Takakeisho with a 5-3 on day 8. He needed 3 more wins after day 8 to escape Kataban, where he was in risk of losing his Ozeki. There's a bit of concern over injury from that match with Tobizaru because when he went out, he kind of hit one of the spectators on the shoulder with his face. He kind of stayed there for a moment, and when he got up, you could see it was nothing to do with his knees. It was all to do with the fact that he belted his face on the spectator's shoulder. Anyway, his next match against Gonayama was billed as 2 old friends facing off, but to be honest, Takakeisho fairly easily accounted for him at that point. Day 10 saw Ura and Takakeisho do a rematch fight after they both went down quickly. Takakeisho face planted as Ura flew backwards past the Tawara bales trying to avoid him. It's a bit of a dead body for Ura again, as he was probably lucky the judges didn't give the match to Takakeisho that problem. It's a real problem for Ura, as usually when he goes back, he's trying to avoid the wrestlers going forward onto their face. A lot of other wrestlers try desperately to keep a foot on the Tawara bales as they go backwards to try and stay in as the opponent touches down. Ura doesn't. He tends to have this, an instinctive jump where he goes backwards, and that pretty much puts him in a position where he's going shinatai, or dead body, which, as we've heard before, is about the wrestler leaving the ring fully and unable to recover from that position. That leaves him in the dead body position, and he's always going to lose from there. Anyway, the rematch happened. That went to Takakeisho. Fairly simple affair with a Tatakikomi at the slap down at the Tachi, as Ura, he just came in too low, too fast, and down he went on his face. Day 11 and 12 saw the Sekiwake's Wakamoto Haru and Kotonowaka face up against the Ozeki, and both played fairly much directly into his style of frontal pushing, and they paid the price for that. Wakamoto Haru didn't get his favourite grip, and Kotonowaka, he just got overpowered. Takakeisho got his Kachikoshi, his 8 wins on day 11, and that got him out of Kataban. Day 13 saw the contender from Magashura 15, Atami Fuji, face up against the most senior opponent so far in that tournament. Now, they're both fairly similarly sized. The Ozeki experience, he just outpowered Atami Fuji for a Yorikiri thrust-out win. Atami Fuji gave a pretty good account, but the Ozeki was just too good. So that was pretty much a preview of what was going to come for the playoff match on day 15. Day 14, it was Ozeki versus Ozeki with the mightily struggling Hoshoryu. Hoshoryu, he stayed balanced. He joined Takakeisho for a bit of light thrusting before he got his grip. And as he sat on the Tawara bales for a twisting throwdown on his fellow senior Ozeki, you know, it was a pretty good news, certainly a much-needed win for Shoryu, leaving Takakeisho on 10-4, 1 win behind Atami Fuji at that time. So going into the last day, day 15, Takakeisho, he needed to win against the Sekiwake Daisho to force a playoff after Atamifuji gave up his chance for the tournament, losing his match against Sanayama. So losing his match, that gave three other Rishiki the chance to join him in a playoff bout. If Atamifuji had beaten Sanayama, that would have given him the cup outright. Anyway, given two of the contenders were facing each other, so that was Takakeisho and Daisho, the best we could have had was a three-way playoff. In the end, Takakeisho was up against Daisho both on 10 and 4. The winner was going into the playoff bout. Look, I wouldn't say Daisho's an easy beat at any time, but Takakeisho, he just seems to have the advantage on Daisho, and this fight was no different. Takakeisho, he fairly easily dispatched Daisho with an Akori Dashi rear pushdown. The dark horse of this tournament, Hokuseiho. Now, look, I've probably said it a number of times on this podcast, Hokuseiho, I don't like his form of sumo. One-handed grip, using his height and weight just to kind of lean on people. I didn't think that was going to really take him so far, but look, he's proven me wrong. He's changed it up a little bit. He's gone for a bit more gripping style. He got up to the end of this tournament, day 15. He was also on 10 and 4, and he was up against the Ozeki Hoshoryu. Now, Hokuseiho, to be fair, had faced mostly lower-ranked wrestlers up to this point. That being said, the Shinozeki Hoshoryu, he accounted for him with a Watashi Kikomi in one of the more interesting Kimirate moves. Both got a belt grip at the time. Hoshoryu went for one of his favourite leg trips. And as they both went up on one leg, Hoshoryu grabbed his leg and helped Hokuseiho over like a large redwood tree. He went down in a crumbling heap after that. It's a pretty good journey for Hokuseiho up to that point, but again, as I said, he hadn't really faced any of the Senyaku ranked wrestlers up to that point. But look, 10 and 4 for him, that's a pretty good tournament, and certainly in the running on day 15. In the end, it was Atamifuji and Takakeisho for the playoff bout for the tournament on day 15, and a hanker decided by Takakeisho as he lifted the Emperor's Cup. So, we'll go through the hanker later in another episode, but let's go through how some of the other Rishiki did. Our fellow Ozeki Kirishima, he was also Kataban in this tournament. He was looking for 8 wins to protect his Ozeki status. He got a couple of early wins over Tobizaru and Meisei, but a rematch against Hokutofuji saw him drop his first match on day 3. It's a bit of a stinging loss as Kirishima tried everything against Hokutofuji, he was bent on revenge for this Basho after that, losing that fight off in July. And pretty much everything Kirishima tried, Hokutofuji had an answer for. It was another day, another loss to Abi. It was pretty quick, and I was nervous for him as he seemed to lose a bit of confidence throughout the tournament. He was very nervous sort of fighting. Day 11... he had a fight against the former Ozeki Sanayama, and it turned out to be fight of the day. It could have gone either way, but a signature leg trip Sotogake move for Kirishima got him that match. That seemed to be a bit of a turning point for his confidence and the way he applied himself in this tournament. He was on his way to Kachikoshi, and he got it on day 13 with a win against his fellow Shinozeki Hoshoryu, who was desperately trying to make Kachikoshi at that point of the tournament. In the end, a 9-6 win for Kirishima. Very nervous 9-6. I'd expect much more from him. I would have said one of the better matches that Kirishima had was against Ura. Ura was trying his hardest to put on acrobatic displays each time he went down. The other one was probably, where are we? Sanayama. That was a fight of the day, I think, on day 11 for him. Could have gone either way. It was a pretty signature leg trip, a Sotogake leg trip for Kirishima. Seemed to be the turning point in his confidence and application there. On to Hoshoryu, our Shinozeki. He escaped Kataban by the skin of his teeth in the end. Terrible start with losses to Hokutofuji, Tobizaru, Shodai, and then he backed it up with losses to Nishikigi, Ura, and Kotonowaka. Look, he was probably a little bit unlucky in the match against Kotonowaka, which resulted in a mono-e judges conference where they decided that Hoshoryu's foot touched down on the top side of his foot rather than the sole before Kotonowaka lost contact with the Tawara bales. It's almost a diver's foot pose as it dragged along the ground as he went forward. And as we've learned, you can only touch the ring with the soles of your feet. So that left him losing that match. Left Hoshoryu chasing 5 wins from 6 matches coming up past the middle of the tournament. So he left it to the last day with his win over Hokuseiho to remove him from the Basho contention at the last hurdle. Hard for Hokuseiho, but look, it gave Hoshoryu his 8 wins. Look, while I said Hokuseiho's improved his variation, both tried for a two-handed grip, and after a bit of a tussle, Hokuseiho fell foul of Hoshoryu's leg trip for a watashi komi, a thigh-pulling push-down trip. Experience beats the height advantage at that time. Look, I would have said that Hoshoryu was in contention, but I think the new promotion and all that comes with it was just maybe a bit too much for him to handle this tournament, a little bit of nerves. Our Sekiwake, they didn't fare a lot better. Wakamoto, Haru, Daisho, and Shin Sekiwake, Kotonowaka, they all had fairly nervous tournaments, eventually posting Wakamoto, Haru a 9-6, Daisho a 10-5, and Kotonowaka a 9-6. Daisho was the only one in double figures. It keeps his Ozeki run barely alive, but I would have said perhaps a little bit less likely at this point. Chasing his 10 wins, Wakamoto Haru, he lost to fellow Sekiwake Kotonowaka on day 15. Big Pillow, he defended Waka's grip. And in the end, Wakamoto Haru got his right grip and left for Kotonowaka, a stalemate. And Kotonowaka was back on the bales, but in the end, Bulk wins out. The big man lifted and turned Wakamoto Haru for a Yori Tayoshi cross grip knockdown. Wakamoto Haru perhaps could have pressed his claim a bit earlier. I think he left it a bit late in this match and he let Kotonowaka back into it, settled into it and probably set him up for a size versus size win. Maybe a bit of a mistake there from Wakamoto Haru. Look, both finished on 9 wins and they effectively keep their rank, but it pretty much ended the Ozeki run for Wakamoto Haru, slipping back into single figures, so he's got to start again for 33 wins over 3 matches. Not so bad for Wakamoto Haru, where he lost to Takakeisho, Hoshoryu, Daisho, Kotonowaka, Asaniya and Abi. I would think that he wants to get a few more of those wins up if he wants to press his claim for Ozeki. Asaniya against Wakamoto Haru, he just got a better grip and stopped him, defended from his favourite grip. He got a bit overcommitted with Abi and he face-planted. So I'd say a few losses he shouldn't have had, a few wins missed against Senior Rishiki. Probably left Wakamoto Haru a little bit disappointed even with 9 wins. Our Shin Sekiwake, Kotonowaka, he lost to Asanayama, Tobizaru, Daisho, Hokuto Fuji, Kirishima and Takakeisho. Look, bright spots for Kotonowaka were beating Hoshoryu and Wakamoto Haru, but Bulk, as I said, the big pillow will only take you so far. It's a pretty good touchy-eye against Nishikigi for a Yorikiri win. It could have easily been a throw as well, but, good work there. Daisho was in the hunt, our other Sekiwake. He was in the hunt up to day 15, but after a bit of a slow start in the tournament, he lost to Meisei, Abi, Takanosho and Ura before day 16. Got himself together and punched out 8 wins in a row before his final day loss for the playoff chance to Takakeisho. I think he's got his feet a bit better. He knows he's getting a bit too overcommitted at the touchy-eye. He showed it with a little bit less force by day 7. His early loss to Meisei really brought home his style at the touchy-eye. He leapt off the touchy-eye at that point, his head down, wasn't looking where he was going. It left him vulnerable to the henka and a Hataki Komi slap down as he plunged forward, face down into the dirt. And I think after that loss, he seemed to realise that wasn't a great option and he kind of slowed up a little bit off the touchy-eye. His loss to Arby, the Henka King, was probably more just about a successful defence by Arby and a good thrusting for a Yorikiri win. Takakeisho, he seemed to have the wood on Daisho, as pretty much everyone expected Takakeisho to beat him. Two super thrusters facing off was bound to be a good battle. And again, experience with Takakeisho, he just won out. Got Daisho slightly off balance for a push out at the bails, leaving Takakeisho in the playoff bout. Daisho, he was stranded on 10 wins, but a pretty good effort in the end. We all know Daisho's style, and when it works, it's brutal, it's fast, it's pretty much unstoppable. But if you can get under it, if you can get him off balance, if you can slap him forward, he's a bit vulnerable. Look, it's a serious style of Sapari thrusting sumo that most fans will appreciate. I still see an Ozeki in the future for Daisho. He's just needs a bit of control over his balance. Our Komusubi down the next rank, they didn't fare so well. Nishikigi, he could only manage a 5 and 10. Tobizaru, our other Komusubi, here, despite a few bright moments, he could only get 6 and 9. That'll drop both of them out of Komusubi back down into Magashira ranks. And we'll likely see 2 new Komusubi in November. Something went fairly seriously wrong for Nishikigi, as he could only manage 2 wins after day 5. Injury perhaps, but we all know he's a better wrestler than that. Tobizaru, he could only manage 1 win after day 8. No injuries really. He was a bit unlucky here and there. Just his style faced some fairly serious opposition, some good defence, and at times I just think his feet got a bit stuck. He lost his balance a bit. He was denied a grip. And to be honest, he just got clean beaten by a better sumo on the day with Atami Fuji, who just lifted him clear off the ground with one of the more powerful Watanage throws you will see. Other wrestlers have some defence to Tobizaru, particularly if his feet don't work and he doesn't get any lateral movement. There's a few drops of spots in order for him down the Magashira. Hokuto Fuji, he had a so-so tournament finishing at Magashira 1 with his Kachikoshi on 8 and 7. That'll keep him at Magashira 1. I don't necessarily see him going up to Komusubi, but he probably could. He kind of was probably a bit unlucky. There's only 2 spots there at the last tournament. 8 and 7 might see him pop up there, but you never know. He took 3 Ozeki scalps, which will stand in his favour, but he summarily lost to Daisho and Wakamoto Haru. Again, some good spots of form for Hokuto Fuji with some good thrusting, good balance, but a few losses just threw him out of contention in the end. Meisei missed his Kachikoshi with the 7 and 8 record at Magashira 1. He faced the Sanyaku and really only got a win against Daisho on day 1 when Daisho put his head down. Other than that, he suffered losses to all the remaining Sanyaku. Last day win over Koto Eko probably saved a little dignity for him, got him to 7 and 8. Asanayama, who I tipped for this Basho, he had a pretty torrid run against the Ozekis. He lost 3 straight matches early. Former Ozeki probably a bit disappointed in that effort. His final day win over Atami Fuji forced the playoff bout for Atami Fuji and Takakeisho. There's probably a little bit of experience and stamina left for Asanayama there to get that win. Let's have a quick look at Atami Fuji. Great grip wrestler, good thrust, good power, impressive technique overall. He's a pretty bulky sort of guy. He's probably a little bit unlucky to lose Henka, to be honest, but to get to the playoff bout is quite an achievement. I think his brand of sumo is genuine, it's powerful, and he'll head up the Bunsuke very quickly. I think the correct result in the end is he only really faced a lot of the lower order Rashiki and Magashira until his loss to Daisho on day 12 and Takakeisho on day 13. They were a pretty good test for Atami Fuji, and the tournament was his to take on day 15, but maybe some nerves and a bit of lack of stamina coming up against Asanayama there and then Takakeisho. Let's look down the list. Shodai, he had an 8 and 7. Tamawashi, well, poor old Tamawashi, he had a shocking tournament. Finished at 2 and 13. Didn't get a win up until day 12. Now, he got a pretty good promotion at the last tournament, but he apparently had some form of injury, and that left him, pretty much in trouble. I'm told that he refuses to go Kyujo, as in going sick from a tournament, and he is, I think, 6th on the all-time record of wrestlers who have faced every tournament. Personally, I think he should have gone Kyujo. If he's injured, he's losing 2-13. I think it's a poor idea. Takanosho, he got himself to a 6-9. Ura, look, you've always got to watch Ura's fights. 9-6, but a lot of acrobatics added in. I think a little bit of flourish at the end of a match. Gonayama, 9-6 on his way up, doing fairly well. Shonan Onumi, 7-8. Onosho, 9-6. Still there, still thereabouts. And I think he's certainly one to watch as we move along. Ryuden, 6-9, a little bit disappointing. Takayasu, the big hairy bear, after his really poor tournament in July, he put on a much better performance, better display, more power than he did in July. Ended up with double figures at 10-5. Fairly impressive matches. Oho, bit of a nasty one, 5-10. Koto Eko. Look, I think Koto Eko, he's just unlucky at certain times. There's a few of his matches probably should have gone his way. I think he got a couple of very bad calls from the Gyoji and the Mono-E's, left him 6-9. I don't think he deserved that at all. Hirodumi, 6-9. Not a great tournament for the big round belly man. We come to Midori Fuji, back to his old self. He was unlucky to not get the technique prize in this tournament after his 10-5. I was very happy to see Midori Fuji back to his old self. He used his signature Katasukashi throw 6 times, and simply put, they couldn't stop him. Everything he did, they saw it coming, and they just couldn't stop it. So he went through the tournament. He had a couple of losses early to Kinbozan, Hirodumi, got a win up against Koto Eko, lost to Endo, Mitakayumi, got a win against Hokuseiho on day 6 by Yorikiri, lost to Takayasu, but then he had a really good run to the end of the tournament, beating Ryuden, Shonan Nanumi, Kageaki, Sadanomi, Miyagiru, Koto Shoho, Dae Shoho, and Aoyama. So really good win, but yes, those last 6 or 7 matches, all Katasukashis, and you see him do it as he comes off the touchy eye. His right hand just goes straight up under their armpit, and you can see once he's got that armpit move, they're basically screwed. Anyway, so really happy to see him get double figures. That should propel him up from Megashira 9, maybe up to about Megashira 7 or 6, depending on it. We'll shake that out when we look at the Bunsuke for the November tournament. Kinbozan, he did well, much improved, a little bit more application for Kinbozan, ended up on a 9-6 for him. Endo, 9-6, and he's finally hitting some form both in July and here after a bit of a dull patch through earlier in the year. I really like Endo's form. I like the way he wrestles. Very fast, very dynamic. Mitakayumi, our big bear, he got a 9-6. Hokuseiho, we talked about. He was in contention up to day 15. Finished with a fantastic 10-5 for him. Takara Fuji, 7-8. Sadanomi, 8-7. Miyagiru, bit of a dark horse there, finished on 10-5. He had a pretty good tournament. Lost to Atami Fuji on day 3, but pretty much got wins up against Hokuseiho and most of the earlier guys. Lost to Endo, lost to Midori Fuji. But, against most of the lower ranked guys, he's still got a 10-5 up, and that's what it's all about. Nishiki Fuji, 5-10. He's in danger, but he should stay in Makuchi. Depends on how it all fell out in Juryo. We'll have a look at that as we come up to the Bunsuke. Aoyama, he's in serious danger again at 5-10. Aoyama sits at Megashira 14. That puts him in a bit of danger at a 5-10. I would think that if he does go down in the Juryo to Juryo, I would think he'll probably retire at that point. Kota Shoho, he is also at Magashira 14 West. He punched out a 5 and 10. I think he'll go down. It's a good chance for Chiyo Shoma. He's definitely taking the Juryo bus at 3 and 12. Kageyaki, he'll be joining him at the back of that bus at 5 and 10. Suragisho, he saved himself at Magashira 16. He got himself Kachikoshi at 8 and 7. Dei Shoho, well, he's sitting right at the back of that Juryo bus at 3 and 12. So, look, that's the Aki Basho done and dusted. There was a bit of commentary over the Henker as that tournament goes now a week past. I'll do a quick little episode on the Henker and we'll explain what that's all about, so you can pick that little episode up when I push that out in the next day or two. And we'll go through the whys and wherefores of the Henker and what we all think about. But look, it was a pretty good tournament. I think winning the tournament with 11 and 4 is perhaps a bit disappointing, and you would think most people would win the tournament with at least a 12 or a 13 record. But Takakeisho, look, it's good to see him back in form. Good thrusting, good power. His knees seem to be holding out for now. Interesting that I saw today in the news that the Yokozuna committee were talking about the fact that they didn't mind the Henker at all, and that if he wins the Basho or does really well in November, we might have ourselves a Japanese Yokozuna on our hands. Anyway, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed that tournament. Sorry it took me a little while to get this episode out. Life gets in the way. I hope you'll join me next time. We'll talk about the Henker, and then we've got a few more episodes that I've got to push out before the November tournament, and I hope you'll join me for them. Anyway, hakioi, let's learn sumo.